Welcome to Traveling Molly's and welcome to 2026. It's our first reading of the new year. So Happy New Year, everyone.
New
My name
Year.
is DeGenova. I'm here with my co-host, Nina Corwin. Hi, Nina.
Hey there. Happy New Year. I've been hearing from a lot of people that it hasn't gotten off to the best start, but we're going to make it a good um, start for Molly's tonight. We've got people that we know who've been regulars. Robbie Nestor is going to be featuring, sharing work from her new collection, which is an ekphrastic collection. Brenda Cardenas is also going to be featuring with some of it ekphrastic work and some of it not. Um, they're definitely friends of Molly's and so glad to see them, to have them step up for the evening. So for those of you who are new to us, we're going to start off the evening. Al and I'll do a poem each. Then we're going to hear from our open mic, and we just have some really fabulous poets in the open mic tonight. And then we're going to get to see our features. After which, um, we're going to I'll have a conversation with our features. And throughout all of that, uh, we'll be doing the advertisement for making donations for the features and buying their books and whatever, but we'll keep them speckled and checkered and all of that. They won't.
Yeah.
In
Oh,
any case, Al, do you want to start with your poem?
yes. Okay. Yeah, I will start us out tonight. In our regular tradition, Nina and I, when we were in the real world, never wanted anybody else to feel like they had to go first. Um, so Since we have an ekphrastic theme for the night, I'm going to read an ekphrastic poem. Um, Except unlike a lot of ekphrastic work, this is not based on a famous painting or anything like that. This is based on a family photograph. So I'm not going to share the photograph. I think it gets described pretty well in the poem. Um, this is the title of the poem, and it's a prose poem, is 1/60th of a second. He is almost out of the frame. Maybe he is hesitating, trying not to step into the picture, leaning on the back door with one hand, the other hand in his pocket, looking down, not at the camera, not at the aging woman in the backyard of this four-flat apartment house. He may not want to interrupt her. The woman is sitting on a simple wood bench, surrounded by potted Easter lilies and hydrangea, which she is cutting. The flower pots are decorated with foil and bows, perhaps leftovers from her church. The kitchen windows are open to let in the late spring air. She wears no sweater over her plain apron and short-sleeved house dress. She is busy, careful, focused on her work. He is young, 19 or 20, already dressed beyond the means of this simple backyard, this working class home in 1950 Chicago. His white dress shirt hangs open, tails out of dark dress pants, sleeves rolled up. He isn't looking at his mother or at the photographer, who is probably his older brother. She is at the center of the picture, unaware of the camera. She can't see the son who keeps his distance, waiting to walk through the frame. He could easily reach around the corner of the building and touch her. Black and white, shadow upon shadow, a frozen 1/60th of a second. What little illumination there is. He is my father. This is as well as I know him. Thank you. Okay, Nina.
All right then. I'm not going to read a poem. I have an ekphrastic poem, and I'm not going to read it because I'm going to read something instead by Renee Nicole Macklin Good. And I don't know if everybody, I'm sure not everybody heard this, but Renee was one of us. She was a poet. She graduated from Old Dominion and had won an Academy of American Poetry prize. Even without her being a poet, what happened last week was shocking and almost like a bullet to the chest of the country. And I'd like to just remember her with her own poem called On Learning to Dissect Fetal Pigs. And I just want to mention that whoever it was that awarded her the prize said that this poem just was head and shoulders over everything else that was in that competition. So on Learning to Dissect Fetal Pigs by Renee Nicole Macklin Good. I want back my rocking chairs, solipsist sunsets and coastal jungle sounds that are tercets from cicadas and pentameter from the hairy legs of cockroaches. I've donated Bibles to thrift stores, mashed them in plastic trash bags with an acidic Himalayan salt lamp. The post-baptism Bibles, the ones plucked from street corners from the meaty hands of zealots, the dumbed down, easy to read, parasitic kind. Remember more the slick rubber smell of high gloss biology textbook pictures. They burned the hairs inside my nostrils and salt and ink that rubbed off my palm on my palms. Under clippings of the moon at 2:45 a.m., I study and repeat ribosome, endoplasmic, lactic acid, staining. At the IHOP on the corner of Powers and Stetson Hills, I repeated and scribbled until it picked its way and stagnated somewhere I can't point to anymore. Maybe my gut, maybe there in between my pancreas and large intestine is the piddly brook of my soul. It's the ruler by which I reduce all things now, hard-edged and splintering from knowledge that used to sit a cloth against fevered forehead. Can I let them both be? This fickle faith and this college science that heckles from the back of the classroom. Now I can't believe that the Bible and Quran and Bhagavad Gita are sliding long hairs behind my ear like mom used to, and exhaling from their mouths make room for wonder. All my understanding dribbles down the chin onto the chest and is summarized as life is merely to ovum and sperm, and where those two meet, and how often and how well, and what dies there. This will help us to remember Renee Nicole Macklin Good if we would ever be inclined to otherwise. So that. And from here, we're going to start the open mic with Judy. Are you still there? Okay, no, she had to sign off because of tech problems. And so let's start with Carolyn Wellman. Nice to see you.
You're still muted, Caroline. There you go.
Can you hear me now? All right. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's poems. And thank you for sharing that poem, Nina. Um, I just have one, and this is called The Sorrow of Horses. There are horses in Brighton who stand for days in the place they lost a friend, a sibling, mate, or parent, not moving, just breathing in the other spirit. The twin steeds sired by the west wind, broken by Poseidon himself, storm-footed immortals, wedding gifts to Achilles' parents, Balios and Xanthos, whirled in battle, Homer tells us, until their manes were suddenly wet with weeping, their fierce and steaming bodies suddenly still as statues, unable to go back to the ships or the fight. The lifeless body of Patroclus, too much for them, portending the fate of their Achilles. And long after Homer, Quintus Sermanus has them waiting beside the ships, hearts full of anguish, until Achilles' son Neoptolemus comes to the battle. And when he is slain, they weep again, carry him to the Elysian fields, and remain there, quiet beside his grave ever after, for they have seen enough of what it means to live forever. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Caroline. Good to see you this month. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next in the open mic, Joe Phelan. What do you got?
Thanks, Al. Really appreciate the opportunity to join all of you and share some work. I've got two poems tonight. My first one is called Night Swimming, with apologies to Michael Stipe. This was published last year by Maudlin House here in Chicago. So, Night Swimming. After the boys were in bed, I'd haul across the bright brine roads of January to the heated pool and delve into chlorinated luminescence. After crunching through crags of sallow snow, the night swim. 64 laps, a solitary fantasia in the far lane. Hurling resonant strokes and buoying my pink mass with nasal blasts, rising goggled and dizzy from the flip turn, facing the immense window, a dime-thin veil between humid steam heads and frost-stemmed tails. Years before, darker compline dips in Northwoods lakes, slick wooden planks and dock moss underfoot. Overhead, the throbbing firmament. No greater courage at 13, talking to girls accepted, than a running leap, a cannonball of faith, into waters known only at noon. The first toe to catch a frond, a thrill of blind fathoms, could be a pike snout. Come up quick and bolt back Sandy, through the center aisle of the mosquitoes' assembly, toward the A-frame cabin's glow. And they warn against this in the Pacific, many curious and some hungry presences encircle the volcanic beaches. We do it anyway, only up to the waist, 3 pineapple Mai Tais deep, feeling the trade winds on your sunburn. Returning from last call in the city by the lake, my buddy with the cinematic oeuvre, out of daring or despair, takes off his shoes and hat and drops 5 feet into the churning inlet. Well, I can't let him die like this, I think. I once placed in freestyle. I forfeit my effects to our third companion, while the spirits roil within. Inward and downward, outward and onward, I was carried away from rocky Edgewater by the wine-dark swell, spitting, coughing, suspended over the deep, pausing my paddling to reverence the spangled escarpment of skyline. I spied a sopping figure wade onto the beach. And this next one is called An Anchorite on Maine. It helps to envision a core they cannot reach, a place of ivy and solitary stone raptured right into contemplation. In this cloister where the pale roundel pours, light through leaded panes, a faint, familiar fullness. Outside, they make a point of throwing what they can, alerts, requests, reminders, good faith with bad. But, so ensconced, cadences coherent to seasons, silent fasts and secret feasts observed with slight and furtive gestures. Thanks, everybody.
welcome to our open mic. I hope you'll join us again. Which reminds me to say that anybody out there can throw their name in the hat 2 weeks before a reading, one or 2 weeks, and if you're interested. Next person, Hetty Habra. She featured last month, and it's good to have you back again.
Thank you, thank you. Can I share screen? Let me see.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have 2 short poems. The first one is an ekphrastic poem. Let me see if I can get it centered. It's a painting by Juanita Guccione, a surrealist artist who also have painted a lot of realistic paintings. She was from New York, and she's the mother of Jalul. I don't know if for a second I can't remember his complete name, but anyway, I will write it in the chat. So her son has curated all of his work, and it appears in many museums. This painting is called We Had Many Faces. One of her recurrent themes is the black sun, and it inspired me to write the following poem. Or weren't we always told to remove our makeup at night? On certain evenings when the sun turns ebony, my heart becomes an obsidian pendant hanging between my breasts, conjuring old lovers' touch, my newborn's avid lips. I can then freely perform, peeling off face after face, the masks that haunted me all my life, each dangling from a strand of my graying hair, caught within a self-woven web of conflicting feelings, brimming with sap and dew. I become a puppeteer, pulling threads of time, braiding throbbing heartbeats with the stillness of empty silences. That's when I realize how much care was taken in recreating myself as though with stage makeup. Or else how could I have coped with the different roles allotted to me at every crossroad, each gilded with a false sense of free will? And the next poem is part of a new manuscript I'm putting together. It appeared in Live Encounters not long ago. It's inspired by a stay I had 10 years ago, very memorable, in Prague. A boat ride over the Vltava River was a must to enjoy the sunset, or so everyone said, and there was still time before the poetry reading. The minute I stepped into the small wooden boat, helped by a slender Senegalese, and handed my ticket to a gray-eyed Albanian tour guide, I felt like entering a space-time bubble as I was seated next to an Indian couple expressing their hostility against Pakistani, a Mexican family disciplining their children, and 2 British women, each speaking a different tongue interspersed with Prague's landmarks' adulterated names. The tour guide's lulling voice put me to sleep as I enjoyed a tall pivo, the only Czech word I could pronounce. The boat glided under the soft breeze, and waters shone like polished silver in the twilight as the sun set over Charles Bridge, its statues like huge birds resting their wings, a procession of silhouettes moving back and forth like giant ants. The ship of fools swayed on the murky waters, filled with centuries-old whispers and drowned secrets. Thank you.
Thank you, Hetty. That was really nice. I can picture it myself. Next up, Jim Madigan. Good to see you.
Oh, good to be here. I was very pleased to be on the open mic list with Robbi here. And so if we take the definition of ekphrastic and expand it to include performance arts and the comedic arts, then my poem is going to fit in there. It's called Morality Police. Cops lined the back of the room, seventh grade bullies, their hands in their pockets, at Jazz Workshop in San Francisco, 1961. Gate of Horn in Chicago, 1962. Troubadour, 1962, and The Unicorn, 1963 in LA. Cafe Au Go-Go in New York, 1964. Lenny Bruce performing. Cops waiting, waiting, waiting for him to say cocksucker, motherfucker, tits and ass, jerking off, and then arrest him. The audience excited to hear a liberatory comic, yet fearful of also being arrested. Brutality in the air. Cops dragged avant-garde cellist Charlotte Moorman out of the Cinematique NYC in 1967 through the snow, Charlotte wearing high heels and a fur coat. Arrested for performing while topless opera sextronique composed by Nam June Paik before 200 invited guests. Cops would raid the gay bars, force men to suck their billy clubs, force lesbians to suck their dicks. Cop harassment, cop violence led to the rebellion on Christopher Street, home of Stonewall Inn, in 1969. Yes, it was fighting back against the cops that Pride is all about. The guidance patrols used by the theocratic Iranian autocrats arrested and killed Mahsa Amini in September 2022 for not wearing a hijab, leading the New York Times to sneer at Iran's governing clerics and what the Times termed their morality police, willfully forgetting the morality police in New York City not so many years ago. Lenny Bruce died while waiting sentencing after his New York conviction. Long afterwards, Assistant District Attorney Vincent Cuccia recalled his role. I feel terrible about Bruce. We drove him into poverty and bankruptcy and then murdered him. I watched him gradually fall apart. We all knew what we were doing. We used the law to kill him. Thank you.
Pulling no punches as we expect from you, Chip. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Let's see. Who next? Marjorie Maddox. Nice to have you for the first time. Let's hear what you got.
Thank you for having me. And I'm also going to share my screen and join the ekphrastic crew. So I'm going to go ahead and
We don't see it.
can you see it now? Can you see it now? No?
All we see is the menu bar.
Okay, let me try again. How about now?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm jumping. Well, I'm going to base this on two book covers that I've done. This is an ekphrastic collection that I did with the photographer and artist Karen Elias. And I love this image that she has on the poppy. Karen is an environmental activist. And so a lot of the focus on the poems that I wrote to go with her images have to do with the environment. There's a series of poppy poems and a series of poems about curlews woven throughout everything else. So I'm going to read this one that has to do with both of those, and I'm going to read another poem from a different book. Curlew of the new moon discovers a poppy. Discovers on the corrugated surface of mud a few surviving petals of grief from Flanders fields. The curlew's curved body bending down to remember where poppies once bled beauty before buried by warfare. Or the curlew, genus numinous, bird of the new moon, unburies instead the curved brilliance of joy, hallucinates a happiness addictive enough to be real. Plucked by the curlew's sleek beak, the red poppy recalls constellation and explosion, then tucks itself into the curlew's speckled attire of feathers. Even here, beneath night's sickle of light, the dangerous burst of bloom, the intoxication of possibility. O curlew, fly back to the moon that bore you, where stars inhale everything, the land of now, sky's simple curve of before. Once there, bestow on this one sign of wonder, poppy ignited as comet, flight and curve over earth, red, moon, and you, dazzling the planet with awe. And you can see Karen's two images there. And this book is coming out at the end of the month called Hover Here. And this is also one of Karen's images. And it turned out I gave them a bunch of images to pick from for the cover, and they chose this one, which happened to be the very last poem in the book. And it's entitled Flight. It's a milkweed pod, but it looks like a bird flying. Still life of milkweed or bird. Inside, once you were a wisp of flight, seeds weathered to air, a delicately tied fly flung across currents of stream, far above the rippling dreams of trout. Or maybe a dragonfly escaped from a web, triumphant silk exploding into freedom, long before the now of all you gave away to become this empty and brittle surprise of beauty. Brown husk of a wing, tipped up, speckled bird reminder of chirp, of everything still willing to soar. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you'll come again. Let's see, who haven't we heard from? Christopher Stewart.
Al, it
Yes.
just occurred to me that not everybody in the audience might know what ekphrastic poetry is. Like, before you introduce the next person, would you just maybe give a really brief one?
Sure. Ekphrastic poetry is the poet writing in reaction to a different piece of art, usually visual art, but it could be music, could be performance art, could be photography. But in general, it's a poet writing a poem in response to someone else's artwork. How's that? Okay. So I was about to introduce Christopher Stewart. Good to see you.
Thank you, Al. I have two pieces. I have a milestone birthday coming up next month. I've been thinking a lot about over the last several months about aging and transitions, and these poems address that. The first piece is called Aria. Aria. At the check-in area at Christie Clinic, a woman alone in a wheelchair, heavy-set glucose monitors on each of her upper arms. As they sort her insurance, she starts into song. It is Tuesday, and we are not young. here for urologists, cardiologists, ENTs, the low chant of affliction in bones and organs, a score of infirmities to measure the melting decades. She begins with Wild Mountain Thyme, then Where Have All the Flowers Gone, in a seamless spento soprano that skates in the overcooled lobby air. Nobody asked her to sing, to recognize an audience with a nameless need, appointment reminders and medication lists in hand, to witness ourselves not as we were before gathering seasons of loss, but as we truly are this morning in the check-in area at Christie Clinic, grateful for knowing we can offer something to the world, to declare we are here, we are still here, with a chorus of years to record our beauty. Thank you. The second piece is called Allelopathy. The garlic mustard, invasive, arrives in May, pocking the parkway garden like cankers, secreting toxins from the meristems to doom any plant that comes near. Gentle aster, unassuming brome, fickle woodland sedge, in a murder called allelopathy. We dig it out by the pailful each spring with garden knives and kick spades, our hands stiffening a bit in late middle age. Deep in gray cells, mutated florets bloom in a broken brain. They gave me decades of chemicals to stabilize the substrate, 1,000,000 milligrams of tablets in manufactured hues of dull yellow and aseptic blue. Swaddled in dark nutrients, monsters grew below the soil line, pushing up thin grass, wiry weeds. My ambition was to have ambition, scatter floral pips in the ground to see if anything grew. It took years to grasp a tiller, learn the work of turning the loam away from poison root, on the way to an improbable garden, imperfect, late blooming, but alive. Thank you.
You know, Chris, you make me think that it would be great to have a reading where people talk about not maybe the age that they are or an important age in their lives, or anyway, whatever. I do want to mention that next month, our features are going to be Beth Ann Fennelly and Brenda, tell me if I'm pronouncing it right, Derek Harrell. I believe he was one of your students. Anyway, and you're going to want to be here for that one. I also want to do the first of our commercials. We like to pay our features, and what that means, because we can't pass the hat, is that we post, or that Al will post the link to a donate button on his after hours website. Everything that gets put in there is going to get split between our features. So hopefully you'll add your $3, $5, whatever, and know that it will end up in a very good place. That's it for now. So how about if we have Don McGuire read next.
Thank you, Nina and Al. So I was recently at a poetry retreat with Ellen Bass and Marie Howe, and the prompt was to write a self-portrait poem, and I failed miserably at it until I realized that I could divide myself into 3 characters. So I did. So this, and I also decided I would experiment with a Japanese haibun, which is basically a prose poem that ends in a haiku. So it turned out to be a series. I'm going to read a couple of those. Self-portrait as road trip. We take the long road because the long road peels the paint off memory. Because Diane says suffering has better lighting at dusk. She drives with one hand on the wheel, cigarette behind her ear like a bone-handled blade, ashes in her lap. I'm in the back, Billy's riding shotgun, navigating with a 20-year-old atlas and a poetry degree. His fingers trace the map like it's a body. He's talking to himself, although he doesn't seem to know it, circling the IHOPs along Route 64 with a red pen. He wants to stop for pie, and a waitress who calls him sugar. We pass a Dollar Mart that shimmers like a mirage in the heat. Billy asks if we should stop. Diane says there's nothing in there we didn't already lose. So we don't. Her foot is on the gas until the old house rises like a half-buried rib cage. The porch slumps. The kitchen roof is peeling like a scab. Diane mutters, guess collapse takes too much commitment. Nobody else says a word. We park next to the 70s bronze Buick on blocks. One shove and the front door opens, waves of mouse piss and mold. Shelves sag with cloudy jars. A mug says #1 Papaw. Hungry Billy lifts a can of cling peaches like a trophy and pretends to recite the label. Repressed memories in heavy syrup packaged the summer we forgot we were loved. Best Buy before the old bastard died and the house got sold. Diane lights a joint and says, "That's the closest thing to scripture I've heard since the low fuel light came on." We laugh too loud, then not at all. Outside, tiny wild strawberries crawl across the crabgrass, red on green, like blood on camouflage. I put one on my tongue, too bitter, too soft, like it wants to rot in my mouth. Around back, the barn is still lacework in shadow. It leans like a drunk holding on to the bar. Something is humming. It sounds like Gray Granny's sewing song, turned into weather. A red-tailed hawk shrieks and I flinch, hearing the old man that time he found Uncle Ray hanging. "Stop," Diane says, glaring at me, like she hears it too. We circle back to what's left of the porch. Why are we even here? Billy pulls the lid off the cling peaches and passes the can around. "Libations," he says. "Botulism," Diane says, taking the biggest swig. The Yellow Jackets find us. We leave the rest for them. Billy writes in the inch-thick dust. Wild strawberries bleed on the tongue. What to forget first? Rust theory. Billy's theory is that rust can remember things. When the Buick's front bumper pings at night, it's that possum that time. Diane says Billy needs a girlfriend or a prescription. Everything knows something, he says, even the timing chain. The driver's side door groans like an old man getting up. Inside, the vinyl seats are too hot to touch. Billy reaches for a rusted lunch pail and yells, "Oh, fuck," as his fingers burn. "4th grade," he says. He sets it back down. "I don't want to know what's inside. Just want it to know I'm here." Old Buick groans again. Something I should have said, I should have said. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. That was fun. It was really interesting. Okay, let's call our next person up in the open mic, Dick Westheimer. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. It's been really a treat to hear all these different interpretation on ekphrasis. I'm going to share my screen. Just as a brief preface, I don't have a large ekphrastic practice, but I do try every month to respond to Rattle's ekphrastic challenge, just as a sort of exercise. And this was mine declined poem from last month, and here's the image. This is pretty short. Like a fragile god. These days, I think if I wore anything but solitude, it would crack open and slough from me like a shell, too small to contain my need to be left alone. Please let me be here in this ossuary of urn and bone that's become home. I'll keep the counters clean, wash every dish, slice my apple the same way at noon every day, and walk around the house with white noise playing in my earphones. I wasn't always this way. So the second one actually won one of the ekphrastic challenges, and I'll share the image. And this is a haibun, which you heard described earlier. It's a fairly traditional haibun in terms of just a single senru at the end. At the end of the world is forgetting. In the abandoned stacks of the abandoned wing of the library where abandoned books are kept, there is quiet beyond the finger to the lips shush, beyond the quiet thrum of the furnace deep in the womb of this place, beyond the low hum of traffic seeping from the streets. No more sound comes from between the pages of the tomes. The dust motes whisper in dust mote tones, wondering where the words have gone. There are no readers here, no sound of a novel sliding from between its companions off a shelf, no lips of a sophomore lit student mouthing the final lines of a poem, no click of the lights going off when the librarian leaves for the night. This is darker than the province of the dead, darker than between the leaves of journals and books. This is the darkness of forgetting, of deep space with no stars, of the rocky core of a dusty, dead planet. Parts of speech between silence and breathing. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Quick question. What was the first piece? What was the artwork?
I can share it again real quickly if you'd like. Although
It didn't say who the painter.
Oh, I'm sorry. You'd have to look on Rattle's website. I knew it. I wrote it down because when I write poems like this, I look at the artist's other work to kind of.
Very cool picture. Really enjoyed these poems.
Thank you so much.
Again. And we're going to wrap up the open mic with an old friend, Kurt Heinz. What you got today?
Hey, good to be here. This is kind of a hot night. Thanks for having me participate. I should mute myself when I do that. I'm sorry. Boy, it's a Brenda Cardenas night. It's a Robbi night. It's going to be an ekphrastic night. I am going to be a bit of a cop-out because I'm not doing ekphrasis exactly, although the piece I did bring hinges upon some photography I took myself, but as a very young child, It's one piece and it's connected to Al because Al, this is the thing I did at Right On up in Door County, but cleaned up a little bit. So maybe you'll get to hear it at last. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope I'm up to the play. I hope I'm up to the standards of tonight's open mic, really, because it's pretty darn good. Anyway, this is called Holding Time because that was the prompt we got at Right On. Holding Time. This paragraph, this stanza, this quip, this phrase of obtuse ideas, this guttural imagining about my father is not my father. The word is not the thing and never was. So my verbal conjuring cannot summon the man and never will. No nostalgic, magic prestige will serve him to us because neither is this a longing prayer for his return. This is a poem, not a prayer. You hear me, and I can see that. Besides, it's also about a place and time. Where he was, when his hug was intended, and he and I both knew it, even without a word to each other, when paternal muscle wasn't anything of forethought, but just happening in the moment. Rescue, reprimand, recursion of material genetics, and the return of adoration, repetition of some faith iota, a moment to remember without plan or expectation that anything long-term would come of it. It was some now unnameable Saturday, probably about 10:40 in the morning. He sat fixing a hose, and I had a box camera, a Brownie Hawkeye. He wore grubby clothes. He prepared the nozzle attachment on a splintery picnic bench under the maple with the squirrels. He used only a chipped screwdriver and thick fingers. My 6-year-old self marveled at what was going on because I knew the nozzle would make showers on the lawn, flinging jewel lights to the air, worth playing under, that would fall to cool me and some friends. The showers I knew were yet to come. And click. I triple exposed the scene because I never advanced my film. I didn't realize that. The film overlaid every moment. When my father took it to be developed, everything was there in some way, but bleached into shades of comprehension, some of which were clear, most of which were blurred palimpsest. And then there was his hug. My camera never captured a clue that had happened at all. There you go. And I'm watching the chat. Oh my gosh, stuff going on here. Memory. Talk about it. Images, what we're talking about with ekphrastic poetry, I think is because we're also playing with memory. The image is a memory, but you take it away and represent it with words. What are you left with? So there's all kinds of fun stuff in it. Have fun, guys. I'm looking forward to the features tonight. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kurt.
Al, do you have anything to add before we go on to our features?
Well, everybody was awesome tonight. Thank you so much. And Kurt, as you tell, I wrote a poem about an old picture of my father. You wrote a picture about your father. Very different experiences, but it's amazing how those family pictures can bring out all kinds of good poetry. Sometimes always not happy, sometimes just what it is, what it is.
I love the idea of the triple exposure.
Yeah.
Any more commercials or reiterations of commercials, Al?
Well, I have a commercial of my own. Well, we have our link for a little monetary thank you to our features. But I have a reading later this month for anybody in Chicago on January 25th, the Sunday Salon, which happens at Roscoe Books. So I'm looking forward to reading there. It's at 7:00 on Sunday evening at Roscoe Books. So if anybody can make it who's in the Chicago area, I think that would be great.
Also, do we have the links in the chat for people's books, for the features books?
No, but if they would do that, I'll share them with YouTube.
Okay, so that means just make sure he has it or add it yourself. So we're going to get started. We've got Brenda Cardenas and Robbi Nestor. I'm really looking forward to hearing from both of you and looking at the artwork also that's inspired your work. Current Wisconsin Poet Laureate Brenda Cardenas has authored Trace, Red Hen Press, winner of the 2023 Society of Midland Authors Award for Poetry, and silver winner of Forward Review's Indie Poetry Prize. Also, Boomerang on Bilingual Press and 3 chapbooks. Her poems have appeared in many literary magazines, American Poetry Review, Poetry, Prairie Schooner, all very cool places. And 2 anthologies, Resist Much, Obey Little, inaugural poems to the resistance. And what I remember from days gone by, Between the Heart and the Land, Latina poets in the Midwest, which was great when it came out. It was great to see it. She's a professor emerita of English at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. It's always great to see you, Brenda.
I have to unmute. Thank you very much, Nina. Al, thanks for inviting me. And it's wonderful to be here and to see you and to read with Robbi and to hear this and fantastic open mic to share this with all of you. Okay, is my screen sharing? Is it working? Wait, let me see.
Sure is.
Okay, but the problem is this banner isn't letting me get to where. Oh, why is it doing that to me? Okay, here we go. Slideshow. Play from start. Okay, here we go. So I'm actually going to read almost all ekphrastic poems tonight. The last one isn't, but I just chose a bunch of different ones. I have written series on particular artists, but I didn't do that tonight. I just mixed them up. And I'm going to begin with an old poem. This is an old poem from my 2009 book, but it's probably my favorite poem from that book. And it was written after a painting by a Chicago artist, Roberto Valadez, called Árbol de Blues or Blues Tree. This is a postcard reproduction of the painting. So you don't get the exact painting with all the details. He doesn't have the painting anymore. The painting was sold, but you get a sense of the painting from this postcard reproduction from a show he did. You guys are all, this is a Chicago series. So of course you probably know Maxwell Street and the history of Maxwell Street, which features in this poem, as well as the Chicago bluesmen. So it's called At the Base of the Blues Tree, Una Ofrenda, or an offering for Jimmy Davis, Chicago bluesman. The hands of this telling tree pull him from the cobalt bowl of sky. Bring Jimmy back to the ruins of Maxwell Street, hunched in dusk. He stood where strings intersected frets like tracks meeting ties on the Illinois Central's passage from the Mississippi Delta, then followed breadcrumbs of troubadours to this steel city. 12-hour shifts beckoned Mexicanos north on the Union Pacific from Piedras Negras to Pilsen, back of the yards. How many grandparents, mothers and fathers pounded steak into soil, snuck or were shoved into boxcars, leapt onto the train's iron rungs as it shuddered along the rails to foundries where they poured molten metal, faced hot licks of the blast furnaces growl and hiss. How many lugged themselves north to slaughterhouses that drooled rank puddles at their feet? This so sons and daughters might step off into another era, choose instruments of wood and metal, axes of their own timbre. This so Jimmy might mix his own palette, tune each turquoise pitch and purple tone into an electric blues old as corridos, but new to the Mexicanos who came each Sunday to the market at Maxwell. New to the ears of Roberto, a boy who would keep his ranchera rhythms close as a pair of old jeans, but grow into the blues as he listened to the airs of Papa Jackson, Johnny Young, Howlin' Wolf, Nighthawk, and Maxwell Jimmy. Now Roberto sits in overalls at an easel, splits the hairs of his brush over how to compose this ofrenda, this homage, how to take Jimmy back in time to the market whose merchants once hustled with tricks for trade ancient as Africa, as Toltec Mexico, Maxwell, whose live blues bands and car radios belting norteño mixes made every Sunday a session. How to take Jimmy back to Maxwell's gathering spot, where he guzzles from an aluminum garden blooming atop his amp, swings his axe, fingers climbing its trunk, plucking twigs, while our feet tap the roots of this wailing tree. Notes skip through alleys of his voice like gravel pinging off windshields, lift a pitch high enough to singe the autumn sky, cousin to the red and green gritos of the barrio only blocks away. 12 bars spin like metal rims, hurling in the tin barrels of his laughter. When people gather, he sputters, "What did the one-eyed woman say?" and waits for them to peer into the devil's draw of his eyes before he roars, "Where is my one-eyed man?" But we barely get to the punchline, to the end of a set before the mayor swings his axe, a claw that rips this Arbo de Blues up by its roots. Before Chicago swings its wrecking ball to level homes, stores, restaurants, bars. Before troops graffiti blast, scrub, and cinch sack it all. But one empty wall, where someone has scrawled Jimmy's name among the others in this Hall of Fame. Willie, Hound Dog, Honey Boy, Sal. The many legends who've shared the marrow of their music, of Santana's hearty soup with the bones still in it, steaming with sabor and sometimes weeping. So that's that older poem. And the next poem I'm going to read is, I'm only putting the slide up for a minute to show you the form of the poem. And the poem is, I'll show you the artwork in a minute. It's a very ephemeral piece of art, that earthwork that will go away with the elements, erosion and such. And so the second part of the poem is an erasure of the first part. And here's the piece. Ana Mendieta was a came from Cuba, or was sent from Cuba during Operation Peter Pan, when parents were sending their children off to the United States without them, because they feared Castro so much. And so she felt orphaned here and had a really rough time. And then she found art, and art really, really helped her a lot. But unfortunately, when she was only, I don't even know if she was 30 years old yet, she was young, she either fell or was pushed off like the 26th floor of a high rise in New York to her death. She did a lot of earthworks. She would carve into the earth. She would put her own body in the earth, covering herself with mud, etc. And so this is one of the many poems I've written on her work. Here we go. Our Lady of Sorrows. Our Lady of Sorrows has appeared to the mountain dwellers, her grief engraved where stone softens to clay. Keep your eyes sharp for a dagger. In its hilt, you'll find her face pressed to the earth's cheek. Kiss this sacred spot before the rains wash it away like her orphaned feet. Notched heart cradles a planet heavy with nightmares flying into empty mouths. Listen for their thirsty murmurs. She'll push her ponderous child into the dew of a San Felipe dawn, name him Salvador. They'll rest beneath a web-spun umbilical, eclipsed from our human eyes. Our Lady, stone, clay, earth, rain, orphaned, heart, eclipsed. And I'm going to get weird right now and read probably the weirdest poem in this set. This is based on another artist, Roy Stabb, who also does earthworks. I'm really attracted to that kind of ephemeral artwork. And this one, I'm showing you the poem. In this case, the poem is a palindrome, only the reflection of it, the second half of it, it's a disintegrating palindrome. So it's an erasure and palindrome at the same time. And that's because this is the work. It's playing with reflection quite a bit. And it also, you can really see how it plays with reflection here. And it also will disintegrate with the elements. And so let me find the poem. Okay, chiral formation. Buckhorn saplings curve into hoops, linking boughs, ring around the rosy. Four staked crowns etch surface, barbed shiver, pocket full of hands. What do you net in the intersect when you walk on water? A forest? My haunted face crowing, cumulus algae, our ashes child slim as a reed. Where does a lemniscate drift, chiral twin wander when the sun falls down? Down falls sun, wander in chiral drift skate where reed, child, our cumulus crowing haunt my forest. Water walk, insect, do what? Full pock, barbed face, etch own ache, rosy rounding, ink, oops, pling. So I told you that one was weird. And the next poem is after I've written about not many, but probably about 4 or 5 poems after the work of Remedios Varo. I really, really love her work. And at some point we'll probably, write many more. And this one, let's see if I'm finding it here. The painting is called Ruptura or Rupture. And this is the poem, Rupture. The Carmelite folds like a bat into her ochre wings. Eyes from all 6 windows conspire flight, cloistered gaze shifting in a suspicious wind. Everything curls into this spectral eve, snails coiling from the veins of leaves, curtains unlashing sprung tongues. Released, a flurry of onion skin spells flock to lips, whose vow will break against an orange sky, whose swoop and whir, whose murmur. Sister is a closed umbrella gathering thunder in the V of her cloak, a storm in her singular step. So that's that. And then I thought I'd go right to another kind of surreal painting or very imaginative painting. And Andrea Couch, This is called The Visitors, and it really got my imagination going because when I saw the crows, I started thinking of Sing a Song of Sixpence, the crows on the pie, and you know how dark that really is. And so the poem is called Sing a Song of Sixpence, and it's after both the painting and the nursery rhyme. The cooks leave the kitchen and blackbirds fly out of the pie before the oven preheats. They count each neck, each wing in the crew, twitch their ruffled heads, and savor the juicy berries that almost smothered them in a scalding, sticky muck. What cook would bake them? Feathers, sweating smoke, beaks pointed in a coven of hum, a spawn of squawks screaming for rescue. What devil spawn shuffles to the stove, spoons the fowl filling into her midnight mouth, despite the panic of three-toed footprints and busted crust? A flock of starlings senses the vex and cunning eyes staring them down. Run, rabbit, run. Stick to the woodpile, little shrew. The housekeeper's snarled head is not a nest to rest after finding your feast. It's a hollow hive, cleaved and wreathed in blue-black plumes. So that's that one. Oh, this. Okay, so this was a commission. I was asked to write a piece for this exhibit, a poem that was inspired by this artwork. And I'm just going to show you the little film so you can see what it does and how it moves, this sculpture. Ready. Okay, so you have a sense of it. Oh, and then there's just two pictures of it, closed and open. So this is Katie Hudnall, and she's in Wisconsin, in Madison, and her piece is called Symbiosis, #2, Pair of Cabinets. My poem is titled Opening Doors. When you open the door to my naughty heart, pieced together like a puzzle, to place a blue egg on its middle shelf, I umbrella you, offer spokes of shade, but never fully shelter your mind from the sun, never block your thoughts from buzzing and hovering like dragonflies above my mind's eye, watching them take shape. And haven't you also done the same for me? Architects of each other's joy, we teeter-totter to the dance floor, where you are so nimble, I'd swear you rode in on wheels. Our steps mirror each other until I lean back, grasp your fingertips, and we spin like our children used to do before falling into mounds of leaves or snow. You always manage to keep our precarious balance, despite the screws in your knee and my spindly spine, all our reclaimed parts adding one more ring to our tree's trunk. Such are the mathematics of marriage. Some mornings I look like a raggedy old fence. You feel like a TV antenna in a storm. But we glide through most days in our wooden canoe, river streaming beneath us, pine needles spicing the air, and a great blue heron standing tall in the reeds. As if we had never seen one before, we point in unison and say, "Look, over there." One day we won't need cabinets, canoes, fences, or antennas, not even our dancing shoes. But for now, let me hide a surprise on the shelf in your heart while you open an umbrella to the rain soaking my grateful head. And this one I think I may have read here before, but anyway, it's I've done a number on this particular artist too, a number of poems. His Eric Ricardo de Luna Enel, and he has 100 of these drawings called 100 Names That Mexicans Give Death. And these three, La Jodida, the screwed one, La Huesos, the bones, La Carcona, the one that's carrying the heavy load. And so this poem is based on all three. Cien nombres para la muerte, or 100 names for death. Las jodidas, the screwed ones. There is some Spanish in this poem. Maíz, hierbas, frijoles means corn, herbs, beans. Agua means water. Mercado is market. Huaraches are sandals. Gritos are shouts or cries. And a grito is also what you hear at the end of a mariachi or during a mariachi song. When that's a grito. Cenotes are very deep wells that you will find in Mexico. They're big, deep holes with caverns in them. Monedas are coins. A rebozo is a shawl. La migra is immigration, like ice. And libros, lápices y sueños means books, pencils, and dreams. We are bent from the loads we've carried, strapped to our bony backs, sacks of maíz, hierbas, frijoles, bundles of firewood, jerry jugs of precious agua. Each Saturday, we haul tall stacks of caged birds to the mercado to sell their captive songs. Their laments our heaviest burden. Hobble a mile in our ragged huaraches, holes in their tire tread soles. Follow us to the village of whispers, where the only gritos belong to the wind, empty doorways grown over with weeds, our men's dusty boots waiting years for their return. Look into the cenotes of our eyes. You'll find no fish, no flores, no monedas, only sacrifices with their mouths full of mud and the dread of our itchy grins. Then tell us you would never risk wrapping your little lamb in a rebozo, grabbing your withered staff and heading north. Devil sun, scorpion, migra be damned. You'd fly for the birds whose latches you could not unlock. You'd fly so the only satchel your daughter hoists on her shoulders is heavy with libros, lápices y sueños. You'd fly, never believing they would wrest her from your back and lock her in a cage. And the next poem, as you can see, again, I have mirrored the artwork with the shape of the poem. And so here's the artwork. And this is a piece of graffiti art by Chaz Bojorquez. He calls placa roll call. A graffiti artist's placa is their signature. Okay, their initials or how they write their name. And the poem, if I can find it. Oh, where did you go, poem? Here's the poem. Placa roll call. It begins with an epigraph from the artist. And the artist said, if the city was a body, graffiti would tell us where it hurts. And this block would shout, nos diste un chingazo, cabrón. Mira esta cara rota, these baton cracked ribs, this black and blue street, dizzy con gente. Blades, Kiki, Larry, Snow, Enrique, Connie, Elton, King, David, Kelly, Jeff Raton, Chaz. Los de aquí, los de abajo. This roll call won't be silenced, not by Glock, not by chokehold. This, our temple of runes, our tomb, its glyphic curve and flow, calligraphic code, writ acrylic. This, our relic, our scroll unrolled in catacombs, our flecks of subtext still buzzing después de que vayamos con la pelona. Que lucha, loco. Ven, baila con nosotros to the aerosols, maraca y hiss. Al punk en español's furious sweat. Hang your head out the window y dale un grito tan lleno de duende that it cracks the pavement. Summons our dead to dinner. Turn the tonal kaleidoscope. Then pause. Catch your breath so you don't miss the illegible moment where all the mystery lives. There, decipher that. So I apologize that there's so much Spanish in that. I couldn't translate it all because it would take me all day. But I do that sometimes. I like when I do use both languages to really mix them up. The names, the list of names, Blades, Kiki, Larry Snow, those names are all in here. And if you look close enough, you'll find them. And this is my last ekphrastic poem. And this is based on an installation that's currently up in New York City. And it's by Sasha Stiles, and it's called A Living Poem. And all of this is created with AI. This is all created with AI. So you get a sense of what it's like. And this is my poem, A Living Poem. Who would have thought a closed system could be so pliant? Sasha Stiles' AI poem, not built on a scaffold of cliche, but text-based art in a museum, algorithms revealing the verse anew every 60 minutes. No parade of perfect end rhyme, this primordial city of the future with its God spot mid two notes in the coquille's call. But what lineage will it claim? What dirty laundry might jam the generator when the grid goes down again and wetlands dry into islands the size of a birthmark on human skin? Will every word ever spoken become our commonwealth while jungles ferment? We are at a crossroads between kiss and touch screen, between hurricane and perpetual thirst. I want to love the lines floating inside my eyes. They're traces of transformation and imagination, but I feel the hoarse hooves of a distant earthquake rumbling beneath my feet. Please send me naked to the pueblo to begin again. Yeah, that's the thing with AI, right? Takes our water supply. So the last poem I have to read is not ekphrastic, hence the blank screen. I'll stop sharing here. And this is called For Those Who Call Empathy a Dangerous New Age Concept. That's a quote from one of our lovely politicians of the day. For those who call empathy a dangerous New Age concept, she is older than Pando, alligator ancestors, and glass sponges, older than stromatolite fossils built by ancient bacterial colonies. With us before Eve's apple, empathy is older than God. In fact, she may have invented him. But we have stuffed her into the furthest recesses of ourselves. We barely recognize her until she ravages us inside out, curls into a snarl backed in a corner, and releases an unchained riot, a scream howl, a dagger-toothed bark in the brain's pitch black matter. More often, empathy is an echo. She might wear a stranger's filthy rags, shiver when the wind's teeth tear through them, and if she cannot bear it, wash and mend them, or unzip her puffer coat, let it fall like a cloud upon another's sunken shoulders as if a gift from the sky. She wears a silver whistle round her neck, blasts its alarm when small men in big gear roll up ready to smash windows, rip neighbors from cars, houses, courtrooms, punch, kick, zip tie their children's wrists. Empathy is a tidal wave that will knock you off your feet if pride moves you more than kindness. She never stops wincing at the thought of Lorca falling, poems fluttering out of his pockets, Sometimes she sits by herself in the rain so long she rusts. But empathy's true finish is never matte, she reflects. She spills her shine on puddles, ponds, window panes. You can name her compassion if you wish, but she is not some distant pity, stiff, sorry. Empathy's cottage is full of pallets on the floor. The first folks to open their eyes in the morning reach for the closest pair of shoes, perhaps their neighbors, and trip over each other on their way to light the stove, start the coffee for rising souls. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you.
And thank you to you, Brenda. Thank you so much. I'm really glad you wrote that last piece and shared it with us.
Thank you.
I'm just looking at the timing and hope we'll have time for a good conversation.
Oh,
because
I'm sorry. Did I go over? I'm so, oh, I did? Oh, I'm
Don't worry about
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry, Nina.
Anyway, we will have some time for the conversation and it'll be good. So, next up, Robbi Nestor, who's a retired college educator and author of 5 books of poetry. The most recent is About to Disappear, an ekphrastic collection published by Shanti Arts Books. She's also edited 3 anthologies, all of them ekphrastic. These days, she curates and hosts 2 reading series, the Verse Virtual monthly poetry readings and Words with You. I am really looking forward to hearing not only your poetry, but seeing the art that you drew it from. And Robbi just added a link to her book publisher or her own website. And Brenda, if you haven't done that, also make sure to do it now. Robbi, so
Yeah.
great to hear you.
Wonderful. The open mic was wonderful as always, and I love to see everyone. And Brenda, that was wonderful too. And thank you for introducing me to so many artworks that I don't know, and 1 or 2 that I did. I think the artworks that I've chosen are mostly very familiar and were challenges at various places at one time or another. I've written these poems over about 10 to 15 years. They've been around a while, and I've been working on them and turning a bunch of poems into a book, which is the hard part, the hardest part. So, Bill, you can go ahead, and I hope you have the thank you. And I'll go ahead and start. I can find it. It went away. All right, there we go. I have to go all the way back to the beginning. The first poem is the first poem in the book. It's called Some Assembly Required. And it's after a photograph by Sal Taylor Kidd called Watching Pins, 2015. The mind is always brewing something, tracing shape-shifting menageries and clouds. Any plain ingredients, flour, water, and a bit of yeast and salt, plus time, can rise to the occasion, becoming a new thing. So a handful of steel pins dropped on a table spurs the mind to summon forces far beyond itself, as sages once scanned the entrails of a bird, thrown sticks or tea leaves at the bottom of a cup, for wisdom that could change a nation or affect a life. What emerges depends upon the mind at work. Maybe a strategy to solve a city's traffic woes, a way to plan political maneuvers, or a play in sports. Philosophy and science are full of sudden insights of this sort, like Newton's apple, Archimedes bending over water, rising in a tub. The chemist Auguste Kekule learned the benzene atom structure from the sudden vision of a snake swallowing its tail. In the pandemic, when rules of ordinary life were all suspended and time became the most plentiful commodity, we would stare at nothing, like a cat intent on tracking birds outside the window. People looked back on their lives, hoping to mend old rifts, contacting former friends or enemies, the quarrels long forgotten. We changed like dough rising at the back of a warm stove. Sequestered in our homes, we braided our loose threads into a pattern, wrote plays, made a family, discovered special gifts we didn't know we had, found power at the tips of our own fingers. Next. You all know this one. American Gothic, after Grant Wood's portrait in the Art Institute in Chicago, where I saw it. Weathered as the barn behind them, hard-eyed and narrow, this pair has a history that never needs to be spoken. All the bad harvests, floods, ill fortune, a few sparks shielded between their palms. What little they own, they built themselves. No patience for roses. When they look at the golden fields, they see only what those sheaves will buy. A new roof, some boots, a mule. They teach this bitter wisdom. We must wrestle this angel, the earth, until it yields. Must take what we can before the storm comes, before we return to dust. Next. This next one is after Edward Hopper's painting Nighthawks, which I think is such a mysterious painting. We're voyeurs, watching from a distance, absently observing the street. And how could we avoid it? The storefront glows like an aquarium, inviting inspection. Its Art Deco exterior curved, sleek as a shark, a Bentley cruising the block. The four specimens behind the glass might have emerged from a dream or diorama, a Disney vision of the future, all gleaming surfaces already obsolete, the men in their hats and suits, the woman in her red dress, the silver urns of coffee dispensing wakefulness. Believing that seeing implies understanding, we study the two men seated at the counter, those doppelgangers. The one at the far left corner observes the couple, if that's what they are, sitting silent before their coffee. It's a closed system, no way in or out, suggesting that even things seen most clearly remain essentially unknown, unknowable. This next one The image is not in the book, and that's kind of a funny story because I did a whole anthology on the photographs of Beth Moon in 2017. And at the time, her representative told me I could not use her images. I could use links from the internet and because it was an online anthology, but I could not use the images. So I didn't ask her when the book was ready because I didn't want to insult her. And she said when she saw the book, "Why didn't you use my images?" She didn't know that her representative said that I couldn't. So if there's a second edition, the images will be there. This one is called Once a Raven, and it's after Flight of the Raven, 2006 to 7 by Beth Moon. In another life, we flew together, sheltered in the boughs of ancient bristlecones, rich with seed. Our voices rose, loud and raucous, but that was long ago, almost beyond memory. From the ground, I watched the flocks assemble on the wires, the stunted eucalyptus. They call to one another in a tongue I no longer understand. Seeker of bright things, there is only one way back to harmony. With you at my back, like a quiver, I become a corvid angel, hunting nothing but the sense of flight, intimate with clouds and wind. My human bones are clumsy, far too heavy for this feat, yet I rise on borrowed wings, adept in ways forgotten long ago. This next one is one of the poems I wrote about abstracts by Robert Rhodes that I saw on Facebook. Robert is a poet and a painter. He's quite ill now, but and I don't know if he's still painting. I don't think he's still writing. But this one's called After Fog and Moonlight, Margaret in her nightgown, alone in Bella's yard. Mist rose from the grass into a sky just
Excuse me,
beginning.
Robbie. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think Bill's having to do some extra work to find the right
Oh,
screen.
gosh. Did I forget?
Oh, again?
I can't find that image. I'm sorry.
It's this one.
Didn't you just find it? It says Robert Rhodes here.
That's the one. Okay.
That's the one we already did.
No, Robbie's poems are coming in a little bit different order than the slides. Sorry to
I'm
interject.
sorry. Oh no.
But Robbie, don't worry because he found most of them. It was just he was struggling to find this one.
It's there. I'm sorry.
Well, why don't you just read the piece and hopefully
Okay. After fog and moonlight, Margaret in her nightgown, alone in Bella's yard. Mist rose from the grass into a sky just beginning to grow light. You threw off the rumpled sheets, glided down the stairs and out the door, leaving it open behind you, seeing the yard transformed, the pedestrian bird bath, close-cropped grass masked by fog. Posing like a dancer, you turned your face up to the moon, as though it were a mirror and you an ingenue, as though you knew that I was watching from behind the open door. And then, wishes spent, you stretched under the oak, white shreds of fog caught in your hair, and slept. The next one is the one on the cover, Disquiet by Kylie Spars. It's the one right under the roads piece in the slideshow. On the ocean floor, sleeping groupers camouflage themselves as rocks. Cocoon in clouds of sand and mucus spun out of the substance of their bodies, as spider spinnerets let down a line of silk. I'm like that, like the whelk within its fortress of a shell, shielded in a vaporous swirl. It doubles as a dress of white chiffon, inverted parachute that spirals around my body like vanilla soft serve, ribbon of cream and coffee. When I feel threatened, the dress sets up its own internal wind and weather, swallows me whole. At the first sign of threat, it automatically inflates. I take flight on milky tides of moonbeams, streamers of phantom light. Is this one missing? It's Magician by Aggie Zed. And the poem is called Transformation, and I don't see
There.
it. This
It's there.
one,
It's on the screen.
did I?
It's on the. You got it.
You got it? Okay,
Yes.
okay. The
On the
transform. No? Okay, let's see if I can find it.
The Magician.
Yeah,
It's there. It's on the screen.
you got it?
Yep.
Okay. Transformation After Magician by Aggie Zed, 2001. Enchantment overtakes us from within. What we become amounts to what we are. The magician's gift is cruel that way. It gives him pleasure to expose the secret self. Here, it's a snake that struggles to emerge like toothpaste out of the victim's human pores. His stunned hands shape the air. His voice, the soft hiss of a punctured tire, escaping from what used to be his mouth, slipped sideways like a scythe. His head now covered by a burlap sack, the kind once used to blindfold the condemned. And yet, we guess that really under the sack, he has no face at all, no split tongue testing the air, only an expression of the flux itself. And now the anaconda coils enfold his torso, consume his hybrid body. It's, the woman with iguanas after The Iguana or Benevolent Dragon by Holly Wilmuth. Perhaps there are crickets in her hair. This woman wearing a hood of lizards, face framed by their clawed toes, tails crossed beneath her chin like the roots of orchids. The lizards clamber up her shoulders, grasp her hair as though it were their customary vines. The luckiest or the quickest perching on her crown like trapeze artists balanced on a narrow ledge. She's a jungle, every inch alive. Rain fills and overflows the bromeliad's many goblets, crowned with extravagant pink blooms. Aside from these, the world's the unrelenting green of walking palm, pot-bellied Baraconda. The woman endures because she must. She knows explorers will eventually arrive to cut down trees and turn them into cash, to capture wide-winged morphos, loud hyacinth macaws, to plunder all her riches and leave her bare and brown. My last one today is Family Portrait with Weapons. And it's after a photograph called Bruce and Elsie, Independence, California by Osceola Refetov. In this place, nothing grows but tumbleweed backed up to the blue hills. To thrive here, creatures must tunnel underground, possess protective thorns or venom. Yet this couple's plump, contented. They love the desert's thrifty blessings, its arid silences. In another age, she might bake casseroles or knit. He'd take up whittling or the fiddle, hunting only for subsistence. Now, killing has become a way of life. Rifles slung astride their shoulders, they walk out of a morning. Bullets nesting in the chambers herald their presence, power over everything that lives. And that's it for today. Thank you so much.
Robbi, that was kind of amazing. And, you know, there are some similarities in the works you chose, but also such differences. And I thank you both for introducing me to the art, but seeing what it inspires. So thank you. We are ready to have a conversation and give another hand to both Brenda and Robbi.
Robbi, those were fantastic. And I loved seeing the artwork. I wasn't familiar with a lot of it. So thank
I
you.
felt the same way about yours. And I especially loved the earthworks and the installations because I haven't written about those yet. And I love that you had that, you say that you have that photograph of a woman with the crown of iguanas on
Yeah,
her.
another one. You can find it online if you look it up. It's
I will.
Graciela Iturbide, and she calls the photograph La Señora de las Iguanas.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I want to take a moment also to thank Bill Harrison, who's doing all the tech. And tonight it was especially, he had an extra task, which is to, you know, to be running the artwork for Robbi. And then he has to go straight into pinning us all so that we, let's see, so that we can look like three people on the screen and the audience will see what it looks like.
I forgot to tell Bill that I took one out because I didn't want to hog too much time. So
okay.
I timed it after the fact and I found that it ran a little long. So I took one out and promptly forgot that I did it.
Oh, okay. So I have a question that has a couple of iterations to it or variations to it, and that just has to do with what draws you, what kind of responses do you find yourself having to the artwork, or where does the artwork drive you to? And if you guys can make that make any more sense than how I said it, then great.
Well, I always tell people when I'm teaching, ekphrastic poetry in a generative workshop or something, I tell them to think about what questions come up for you when you look at the image. What mysteries do you need to solve? And that's what you focus on. So they're very different depending on the image and on, of course, how it relates to my experience in one way or another.
That's great. I mean, I've always been really drawn to visual art. In fact, I think I'm someone who wanted to be a visual artist but didn't have that talent. So I became a poet. And it's partly there were some visual artists in my family, an uncle, my brother, and artisans, and that's part of it. But I just think it's something I've always loved. And so for me, when I get to the point of deciding to write a poem that is inspired by art, it's because it's art that won't let me go. It's a piece I see and it won't let me go. And sometimes it's just the piece itself. And sometimes it's, after I see the piece and I start doing some research and looking into other work by the artist or the artist's life and things that happen in the artist's life, and you start looking at the relationship between that and the work, then that might pull me in.
I also
Robbi, how would you characterize what was driving you when you wrote about American Gothic? I mean, it seemed like what you were doing was kind of giving us the life almost from a political perspective or an economic perspective, in addition to kind of capturing the characters in the painting.
That painting has always spoken to me because it comes out of an experience that's so very different from my life, right? And so that I wanted to talk about those characters that emerged for me when I looked at that painting, not ever having lived a life that was anything like that.
Now, Brenda, you read a number of pieces, but the one I'm going to come back to is the very first one, which I've heard you read going back at least 15, 20 years. How would you describe your response to her, how that inspired you?
Yeah, that was sort of the artist Roberto Valadez has painted. His work is incredible. That little postcard rendering is nothing compared to what I've seen him do. He did portraits of all the Delta blues artists, and he was having a big exhibition of these portraits. And then that particular piece of the ofrenda for Jimmy Davis was among them, but there were many. And he asked me if I would write a poem for the exhibition. And I picked that because that allowed me to do a lot more than just, responding to a portrait. And we talked for a long time. The artist and I sat and had, many a beer and long conversations about his experience as a child migrating from Mexico, and then knowing only Mexican music at first, and then finding the blues and being taken with the blues. And then we started talking about Maxwell Street and the blues tree that was there, and the lives of some of the people like Jimmy Davis, who I speak specifically about in the poem, and how when they, the city kind of ended Maxwell Street and tore down the blues tree or cut it down, how that affected Jimmy Davis and how he died not long after that, right? And so the poem is inspired as much by Roberto's stories and by blues in general as it is by the painting. But whenever I write ekphrastic poems, everybody has their own definition of ekphrasis and their own ways of thinking about it. And there are many scholars, and I could start quoting and I won't, but there are many scholars who've written on it. People have their own things with it. I see it as writing inspired by art, but that I don't feel like the poem has to stick to the art the whole way through. The art can be, or the art can be a jumping off point, right? And so in that case, the artwork keeps coming back into the poem. I keep threading back to it, but it's more the jumping off point to tell this larger history, right, of that part of Chicago and that kind of place in between the Mexican American community and the African American community, and a place where they came together, so it became a bigger project then.
So I want to know what each of you would say about, your perception of the other person's approach to ekphrasis. I don't think it's just one. But Brenda, how would you describe Robbi's approach to ekphrasis?
That's a really hard question.
Well,
without
Robbi has the advantage.
sitting with Robbi's book in my hands. And,
Right.
I mean, that would be something I could write a whole essay on or paper on, upon studying Robbi's work, right? But I like how what I liked about these poems is it's like she's taking a deep dive into the artwork, the painting or the sculpture or whatever it is. And she kind of said it herself when she talked about the question she gives her students about, what is the mystery that you want to solve here? What is it, what questions emerge for you from the artwork? And I see her doing that, answering that and taking a really kind of deep dive into the piece itself and to what surrounds it. Like maybe if it's a figure, for example, the magician, right? The psychology of the musician, right? So she's describing, but she's going beyond describing. She's describing elements of the visual, but she's moving much beyond that. And I think that's really important in ekphrasis, because if all you do is describe the painting, then forget it. Just go look at the painting, or go look at the sculpture, right? So, I mean, Robbi, I could say so much more if it was more time and, but I can't wait to read that book. I'm really looking forward to getting it.
Thank you so much. I think that's very perceptive. I think in some ways, your approach is quite opposite from mine. I love it. And I love when people write totally different things about the same painting. Too. Because my ekphrastic pieces are mostly so impersonal. Whereas I write a lot of personal narrative, drama poems. When they're not ekphrastic, I never do that. When I write ekphrastic, it's like it's a blank slate emotionally for me. I can go into somebody else's. It's an exercise in empathy, speaking of empathy, and getting inside somebody else and escaping myself for a little while. And sometimes that's what it is, because sometimes it gets to be too much to be inside that intensity. So somebody else's intensity is another thing. But I love the way these poems that you write come out of your culture and how they create scenarios from your culture. So you're going through a window, right?
Yeah.
It's far beyond the piece into an entire world.
Yeah, the artwork is more of a jumping off point for me. Although it depends on the piece, like I think with the like Roy Stabb's chiral formation, I'm more sticking to the piece. But yeah, there's a lot, I let a lot of imagination come into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is.
Sometimes we're interpreting too. Sometimes we're interpreting the art. You know, what does it mean to
Or
you,
it's
right? Yeah.
sometimes like with the Night Cafe, with Van Gogh's Night Cafe, in my book, which I didn't choose to read, I identify with something that is not there in the painting. The first person narrator is a bee that's flying through the cafe.
That's great. That's so great.
I think I actually made some editors pretty angry.
Well, you know, that speaks to some of my own experience of having musicians respond to my poetry. And one of the things that someone said was, you know, once you give me your piece, I'm doing what I want with it. I'm making my own piece from it. So you're giving it away, which is kind of interesting. And sometimes what I would hear from in their work was like, how did you get that from my piece? Fortunately, because there are no words in the piece other than mine, I can't really say you missed the whole point. But you are the artist is giving it up, whether he or she knows it or not.
But I usually don't ask them before I write. If I want to publish it with the image, I'll ask, can I use the image? And sometimes they say no.
Robbi, I have a question about that, Nina, if you don't mind me asking quickly. I mean, my trace has a bunch of ekphrastic poems in it. It's not solely ekphrastic, but it has a bunch of them. And I didn't even think about asking to use the images because I just figured that reproduction would be way too expensive for the publisher and that I would have to pay for the use of the images. Did you have to pay to use the images?
I can't. So well, the publisher that did this, it took me much of that 10 years to find a publisher who
would, yeah,
do this. But Shanty Arts, she specializes in this. She knows how to do this beautifully, and she won't use anything that doesn't have it explicitly either in the common domain or has the permission of the artist. So there are many poems in the book that don't have images.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
And
we could
I agonized over that. And Dean Rader, I gave him the manuscript and he said either use no images or all images, but the editor at Shanty Art said, nah, don't worry. If some of them don't have images, that's
so you guys are disappearing, I think. But I want to thank you so much for a conversation that could go on. And
yeah.
I do also want to mention, though, that to Al, that people have been saying that they're having a problem with the donation mechanism. I don't know if you caught that, but I don't.
caught that. It was only, I think it's only one because we've got other donations. So
Okay, okay. So I don't know if you guys want that we're trying and having a difficult time want to give it another shot. But for now, we're going to call it a night. And thank you for a wonderful um open mic, wonderful open mic, and to both of our features for kind of creating something that was kind of synthesized and manifested with the whole uh, open mic, and everybody seemed inspired. By
Before you go, Robbi mentioned Dean Rader, and he has a fantastic ekphrastic collection all on the work of Cy Twombly. I just had to mention it because I love that book so much.
You know, both the two of you are obviously in love with ekphrastic work, and I think for those of us who have not experienced a whole lot of it, this should get you going. So Al, anything else?
Nothing else to add. Just as always, thank you everyone for being here. It was a great open mic, and our features. It was just fantastic reading, both of you. Thank you so much.
Well,
And,
thank you for having me. I wanted to say.
Yeah. So
I hope to see you guys, you all, next month. We always meet on the second Monday of the month, and we're going to have a great couple of features. Have a wonderful evening. Hang in there. We've got a lot going on in the air. And
okay. Have a good month, everyone. Thanks.
Yep. Thank
Yep.
you.
Just make it till
Bye.
next month.
Thank you. Thanks. And Nina, I hope I can is there going to be a recording available so I can catch
Yes,
Robbie's?
Dick, thanks for mentioning it. It will be on YouTube by the end of this evening.
Okay. And sorry, Robbie.
Just
that I
so that
skipped that.
traveling Molly's